AI is making average code cheaper. You can generate boilerplate faster, you can ask for tests, you can paste an error and get an explanation. You can even get a first version of a feature. So here is a real question. If coding gets easier, what actually makes someone a senior software engineer? Because if your whole plan is, I will just write more code than anyone else, I think you might be in trouble. In this video, I want to show why many good software engineers never become really senior and what you can start changing this week. Let's start with the slightly uncomfortable part. A lot of engineers are trying to become senior by, getting better at the wrong game. They learn another framework, they close more tickets, they write more code, they become faster at implementation, and none of this is bad, this all helps. You do need strong technical skill. You do need to be able to build things. You do need to understand your tools, but that is not the full senior engineer game. That is the entry fee. The mistake is thinking that because you are technically useful, people automatically see you as senior. They often do not. Because seniority is not only about what you can build, it is about what people can trust you with. Can they give you a messy problem and trust that you will not just create more chaos? Can they trust your judgment when the ticket is a bit unclear? Can they trust you to notice risks before they become production incidents? Can they trust you to challenge a bad idea without turning the room into a fight? That is the shift from code output to judgment. And this matters even more now with AI coding tools because AI can help you with writing code faster, but it cannot decide whether that code should exist in the first place. The first reason engineers stay stuck below senior is that they will measure themselves by code volume. They think, I shipped 5 tickets this sprint, I fixed 3 bugs, I wrote a lot of code, I must be growing, maybe. But senior engineers are not valuable because they create the most code. Sometimes they are valuable because they prevent unnecessary code from being written at all. Imagine a product manager asks for real-time notifications. A mid-level answer might be, sure, I can build that. A more senior answer is, okay, what does real-time mean here? Does the user need to react within seconds, or do they check this dashboard once a day? Could we start with refresh on page load or a scheduled update before adding WebSockets and operational complexity? All these questions. That is not being negative, that is protecting the product and the team from accidental complexity. And this is where AI can actually make a problem worse. Because if generating code is easy, generating unnecessary code is also easy. Bad ideas become easier to implement, wrong solutions become faster to ship. So the senior skill is not just speed, it's taste, it is restraint. It is asking, what problem are we solving? And what is the smallest possible solution? The second reason why engineers stay stuck is that they wait for clarity. They wait for a perfect ticket, perfect acceptance criteria, perfect designs, perfect requirements. But real senior work often starts before things are clear. The request sounds vague, the user problem is messy, the system has history, stakeholders disagree, nobody knows exactly where the problem is yet. And this is where some engineers may freeze. They say the ticket is not ready, the requirements are unclear, someone needs to tell me what to build. And sometimes that is fair, but if this happens all the time, that is a growth blocker. A senior software engineer does not need perfect instructions to start creating clarity. They can take a messy problem and write a simple plan. What do we know? What do we not know? What are the risks? What options do we have? What can we test first? How will we know it worked? What is the rollback plan? This does not need to be a huge architecture document. Sometimes one page is enough. But that one page changes how people see you. Because suddenly you are not just waiting for work, you are shaping the work. That is a major senior signal. And in the next part of the video, I will get more practical because this is one of the easiest places to start if you want to move toward senior level without waiting for permission. The third reason engineers do not become senior, in my opinion, is that they avoid business context. They want to stay safely inside the code. And I understand that code feels clean, business discussions can feel vague, right? Product meetings can feel slow. Stakeholders sometimes explain problems in a bit strange ways. But this is exactly where senior engineers become valuable. Because the job is not only to answer how do we build it, the job is also to ask why are we building it? What custom problem does this solve? What happens if we do nothing? What is expensive about this solution? What can fail in production? What are we optimizing for right now? Speed, quality, cost, reliability, learning. This is where trade-offs live. And senior engineers are basically paid for trade-offs. Not because they always have the perfect answer. They do not. But because they can make the trade-off visible. They can say, we can build the full version, but it will take longer and increase operational complexity. Or we can build a smaller version this week, learn from real usage, and only add the complex part if the need is real. That is senior behavior. Not because you sound clever, because you help the team make better overall decisions. AI does not remove this skill, it increases the value of this skill, in my opinion. Because when implementation gets faster, the direction becomes much more expensive. You can move faster in the wrong direction. That is not progress, that is just faster accident. The fourth reason engineers stay stuck is that they become useful but not multiplying. And this one hurts a bit because it can look like a strength. You are the person who fixes things. You know the system, people come to you, you unblock everyone, you save the day. And honestly, that can feel really amazing. But there is a trap here. If the team always needs you, you are not only valuable, you might also be becoming a bottleneck. Senior engineers do not just solve problems, they increase the ability of other people to solve problems. That means explaining your thinking in code reviews, not just change this, but I would change this because it makes the failure mode easier to understand. It means, pairing with someone and letting them drive. It means documenting the weird part of the system so the next person does not need to ask you again and again and again. It means turning private knowledge into a team knowledge. And this is also one of the most underrated AI era skills, if you ask me, because juniors and mid level engineers can now get quick answers from AI tools. But quick answers are not the same as good judgment. A senior engineer helps people build judgment. Why this design? Why this trade off? Why this test? Why this level of complexity? Why not build it yet? That is mentorship, not giving people the answer, teaching people how to think better when the answer is not obvious. So, let's make this practical. If you want to move towards senior software engineer level, do not start by asking what framework should I learn next. Ask better questions. This week, take one vague problem and write a short plan before you code. In your next pull request, explain one trade-off, not just the implementation. In your next product discussion, ask what problem we are solving and what happens if we do nothing. When someone asks you for help, do not just fix the bug. Explain how you found it. And when AI gives you code, do not only ask whether it compiles, ask whether it should exist. That is the muscle. Because the future senior software engineer is not the person who types the fastest. It is the person who creates clarity when the problem is vague. The person who understands trade-offs, the person who protects the team from unnecessary complexity, the person who makes other engineers better. And the person people can trust with messy problems. So if you feel stuck below senior level, maybe the answer is not to write more code. Maybe the answer is to become more useful before the coding part starts. If this was helpful, I also made a video about the signs that you might already be operating as a senior software engineer, even if your title has not caught up yet. That one is the other side of this topic, and I will link it here. See you around with the next one.